What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, and today I'm going to be ranking Guns N' Roses studio albums according to my favorite. Apparently, Guns N' Roses are on tour right now. They will be in San Antonio in 3 weeks. 3 weeks from today, actually. So I might have thoughts on that further somewhere down the line. Did score tickets for that. Yeah, sometimes you just it's like a train wreck. Is it a train wreck? Is it good? I'm really interested to see what's coming around this time around. But anyways, yeah, I grew up in LA in the 80s. Yeah, Guns N' Roses were huge. I'm definitely a fan of Guns N' Roses. Um, 6 albums. I'm gonna do those 6 albums, including all of them. The cover album, the EP plus acoustic tracks, that second album. Um, and they almost have, I would argue, first, How Did We Get Here from Frank Zappa? Guns N' Roses covers Paul McCartney. Frank Zappa covers the Beatles. Guns N' Roses covers Bob Dylan. Zappa does a bunch of stuff Dylan related and homage to Dylan. He almost produced one of his albums. Blah blah blah. There's lots of connections. They obviously live in the same musical world. It's probably a more direct connection that I'm missing, but I'm missing it. Um, I would argue that their 6 album career is almost a movie version of a rock band. It is almost like the opposite of Spinal Tap, and that they never. Well, I guess Spinal Tap was huge with what the Flower People said. Listen to. I think they were huge, right? But anyways, so their first album, Guns N' Roses, absolute breaks the bank, absolute bomb, huge, massive success. The band is huge. Makes a Clint Eastwood movie. That song, I think that came out before the band broke huge. But like, they are the hot hard rock ticket item of the late 80s, Guns N' Roses. Um, then they quickly scramble to put out like another album within the next year, and they drop a GNR Lies, which has an early EP, which has some pretty good short, effective rocks stuff, a couple covers. And then they do an acoustic side to show their softer side, but of course they have to include some lyrics that are guaranteed to offend everyone, which they do, which there's just no reason for. I don't think there's any defense of those lyrics. Kind of ruins it for them for a while. Right now, everybody's talking about the wrong thing and not talking about the actual music. They're talking about lyrics. Their own fault. They shot themselves in the foot. Then they have a couple more years till they put out their next album. And when they put out their next album, they drop 2 albums, both double albums, on the same day. Just ridiculous hubris, ego out of control. What the heck? Great albums, not complaining about them. But yeah, we haven't put out an album since our debut. We did this little half-assed little thing that offended people. Now we're going to drop 2 double albums on you years later. Um, then we're going to do a covers album. Yeah, just a bunch of covers from like good choice of bands. I absolutely love the album. Big fan. But that's what we're going to follow up our double shotgun barrel double album shot with. Then we're not going to put out our next album for 15 years. And it's going to be all over the internet during that time. There's going to be rumors about what's on it. Songs are going to get leaked. We're going to play some of the songs live, and those will get leaked. There'll be mock up copies of the album on like BearShare and SoulSeek, probably on Napster. Yeah. Then we're finally going to drop that album. But none of the original band members are going to be in it, really, except for the front man. So that's a career, man. That's a movie career. Now I'm going to talk about those albums. I've been yakking on too long, but I do think that it's a Hollywood screenplay, but it's like kind of disastrous, right? Because there's drug problems and all kinds of problems throughout. But yeah, anyways, I'm a fan of the band though. Anyways, on to number 6. Number 6 is their second official release, studio release, full album release, GNR Lies or just Lies. Um, Came out in 1988, just over a year after Appetite for Destruction came out. Um, and it is side A of this is an EP that came out prior to Appetite. The EP was called Live, something like a suicide, Live, like a suicide. I'm assuming it's an act that one commits. Maybe I don't know. And that's a pretty good little EP of four kind of straightforward, no nonsense rock star songs. An early song from a band called Hollywood Rose that Axel and Izzy were in together. They wrote the song. A cover of a Rose Tattoo song called Nice Boys, which is pretty good. An Izzy original called Move to the City, which is pretty solid. And then a really good, just sounds like Guns N' Roses, doing Aerosmith, a really solid cover of Mama Kin. Just really good rock songs. And they've taken, I think it's from like a Texas Jam in the 70s, like those huge music festivals out here that they used to have, I think at the Cotton Bowl. And they've taken that audience noise and they've overdubbed it over these studio songs to give it a fake live feel. But it works. The energy is good. The songs are fantastic. It's just a really short, like 12 minutes, maybe 14 minutes long. Not very long. Whole album's like 33 minutes total. Second side is some new stuff. It's acoustic stuff. It's not bad acoustic stuff. The sort of hit off of it was Patience, which I think goes on a little bit too long, is the least interesting of them. Used to Love Her. It's just meant to offend people. Used to love her, but I had to kill her. Maybe it was Down by the River. Maybe it was a Neil Young reference. I don't know. It's a pretty neat little fun song. Acoustic, good energy. And then You're Crazy. It's another really good, probably maybe the best song. Definitely the best of the acoustic songs. Maybe the best song on here. You're Crazy. Really good acoustic number. Just awesome energy. Good song. And then it ends up with One in a Million, which is kind of interesting musically, but it's the one where he's just got to like drop enough offensive words to offend everybody. It was just a distraction. He shot himself in the foot. Had he not done that, had I'm assuming Axel's the one that wrote the words and put the lyrics in there. Had Axel not done that, I think this album would have been loved and praised much more than it is. I don't even think One in a Million is available anymore if you get this album. Maybe it is. But it's a pretty interesting song. But it's, again, why did he have to do that? Anyways, it's not a bad album. It's number 6 just because it's pretty short. I do think Patience runs long and the acoustic stuff is good, but this is a hard rock band. Let them be a hard rock band. But still, I think it's a fun album. It's just, why do you have to mess around and like shoot yourself in the foot like that? I'm going to keep saying shoot yourself in the foot. Anyways, number 6, GNR Lies. Number 5 is The Spaghetti Incident, an all covers album. I usually do not like covers albums. I usually do not review covers albums. I usually do not include them in my list. I just flat out love this album. It sounds like Guns N' Roses playing hard rock music. Just happens to be covers of some pretty good bands. Maybe better song choices are out there, but the band choices are fantastic. And apparently these are bands that sort of influence Guns N' Roses, and they're not wearing that influence on this album in their performances because it sounds like Guns N' Roses just having fun and playing songs they love. Like they're not trying to sound like these bands. They slow down a couple songs for fun. They throw in a Charles Manson cover at the end just to make sure someone somewhere is offended. You don't need to do that. There's no point in them doing that. It's not like they're like mocking Wall Street or anything. Don't understand it. But anyways, and again, people did complain about that. But it's a great album. Like we have songs, the UK Subs, that's awesome choice. That is one of the best songs on here. There's covers by the Stooges. You got an Iggy song on here. You got some Fear on here. You got a cover of T-Rex's Buick McCain. You got a sort of an obscure 50s number to open it up by a band called the Skyliners that gives it a nice sort of almost emotional kind of actual like ballady type number. Yeah, just really, really good fun album. There's a Nazareth cover. Probably the most, I don't even know what the most like popular thing on here would be. Is it maybe the Sex Pistols? There's a Sex Pistols cover, so maybe that's the thing that most people would know. But then how many people know Sex Pistols songs? But yeah, just really good. Yeah, really good, fun, awesome album. Would be their last for 15 years after this. An interesting way it looks like they were going out on this. But I enjoy this album. I think it's probably the best covers album ever made. So anyways, that's my number 5, the spaghetti incident. Number 4 is Chinese Democracy. One, this album has zero right to be as good as it is. Again, Spaghetti Incident came out in 93. That came out like right after the tour from Use Your Illusion, or during the end of that tour, sort of like they'd been on tour for a while. They started writing songs, they broke up. Every once in a while, it looked like, oh, Chinese Democracy is going to come out. And I know when I was on BearShare and SoulSeek, like a file sharer back in the day to get music files, you'd see these Chinese democracies sort of like, oh, this is like bootleg version of this album pop up every so often. They usually had a couple live tracks of songs, and then just some, who knows what the other stuff was. Sometimes it didn't even have names. But anyways, it should not be as good as it is considering its long history. I'm not going into the history. I'm sure it's crazy. It's not a Guns N' Roses album. I am putting it at 4 because it has a Guns N' Roses name on it, but it's not a Guns N' Roses album. It's an Axl Rose solo album. There's no Slash, there's no Izzy, there's no Duff. That's not a Guns N' Roses band. It's an Axl Rose solo album. And approaching it like that, like, it's a pretty good hard rock album. It's got some hard rock. It's got some like new metal flourishes in there. Buckethead, who I absolutely love, plays guitar, and Buckethead has that sort of technical shredding with like occasional forays into like a Morello type weird robotic electronic style. There's other musicians on here. I think Tommy Stinson plays on here from The Replacements. It's kind of a hot mess. It doesn't sound like a band album. It sounds like a a singer-songwriter, like Axl Rose. It is his vision, and he has these, musicians helping him achieve it. Doesn't sound like a band, but the songs work. Like, they rock hard. The opening, Chinese Democracy, right off the bat sounds like Judas Priest, Living After Midnight. Like, right away, you're like, dun, dun. It's a little more staccato and sparse, but right away, you're just getting into some classic metal energy. You get a couple, like 1-2 hard rockers to open that are, Shackler's Revenge is a little weird. We're getting to definitely a little more modern type energy. Some sort of, definitely not 80s hard rock energy, but some updated little electronics seep in, some drum machines seep in on this. We get some really nice sort of melodic hard rock that Axl does so well. Better is a good example. In fact, we get a whole run of songs kind of in the middle. Better, Street of Dreams, If the World, that kind of have this strong melodic drive about them. And then we get this sort of mini epic, There Was a Time, which feels like it wraps up either the first half or maybe the first long third of the album. But There Was a Time has sort of that epic sort of, we're going to throw a little bit of everything in the mix. And they just do it. Guns N' Roses does it well. Axl Rose does that kind of thing well. And then we get just the middle tends to be a little weird, a little maybe like more melodic. Then we get into harder stuff again, some more like more aggressive music. And then towards the end, we have some more interesting lyrical stuff. IRS is pretty interesting. Madagascar is pretty interesting. And then we close out with Prostitute, which is, it's a really neat, almost soft rock. It's definitely not soft rock, but it is this really neat sort of mid-tempo, kind of has this story vibe about it, that just has this really positive, almost pure energy about it, even though it's called Prostitute, to end the album. It's just really, I don't think there's a bad song on it. I don't think there's a absolutely fantastic song on it. I don't think there's anything that's like, you gotta hear this song. But there are some really good moments. And I think if Axl Rose had released this as a solo album, he might have got a little more love, just because I think it represents him well and his vision of what this wanted to be, since he's obviously the one that stuck with it for 15 years. Yeah, but anyways, it's a pretty good, pretty fun album. And I enjoy listening to it. I was expecting to hate it and like find the production to be all over the place. And yeah, there's a lot of different styles, and you can tell there's different musicians doing solos. And yeah, it definitely has an eclectic mishmash feel about it. but it all works, and it feels like there's a single vision that Axl has that kind of is a thread that runs through it. But I don't know. I really, really enjoy this album. Has no right to be this good. Number 4, Chinese Democracy. Number 3 is 1991's Use Your Illusion 1, their third studio album. This came out the same day as 2. I called a friend of mine, Eric. I was like, Eric, I know you bought these albums the day they came out. He said yes. I went over to his apartment. We were in, we were juniors, just starting our junior year at Cal at this point. Yes, we'd been there for about a month. Went back, hung out at his house all night, and we just cranked these 2 albums and listened to them, and it was absolutely fantastic. Some absolutely fantastic songs on here. They're both double albums, and there is easily 45 minutes of music, probably on each album, that is perfect. And if you take the best, say, 50 minutes of both albums, you have just a flawless album. As it is, this one I think has a little more filler than the other one. And I think the first, almost the entire first side, or the first like side plus 6 songs, feels like the album isn't even started. I think it's horribly sequenced in the beginning. Opens up with Right Next Door to Hell, which I think is the most bland hard rocker on this. It's not the worst. There's some things that are like, oh, what is this? But it's the most bland. Then you get Dust and Bones, a fantastic song. This one kind of gets lost in the just the sort of, I think, the complete lostness of the first like 6 songs. I wish Dust and Bones had appeared later. Fantastic song. Cover of McCartney's Live and Let Die, which just doesn't need to happen. Don't Cry, the original version. I think the version that's on 2 works better. I think this could work if it wasn't here. It just seems like, what are we doing on the beginning of this album? Then we get Perfect Crime, which is maybe the most aggressive thing on here, but it just feels like an afterthought. It just feels like, what is this band doing at this point? We get this really short, sort of acoustic-driven Stones type Exile on Main Street thing called You Ain't the First, an Izzy song, which just seems too short and seems like it needs to last longer. Then track 7, the album kicks off proper with Bad Obsession. We're rocking hard. And from here on out, the album is almost perfect. Bad Obsession, Back Off Bitch, Double Talk and Jive, another Izzy song, which is fantastic, has this really, really awesome sort of hard rock part in the beginning and this really sort of awesome sort of post-lude type, coda type thing. But they're both too short. And the entire song, I think the solo even fades out and goes into the second part. They're both way too short. And this song, it's 3:23. It needed to be 6 minutes long. My only complaint. We got November Rain, which is my least favorite of the epic ballads. But they proved they could do epic ballads. I would leave the song off if I had to put together the highlights of this. But yeah, I'll grant that. The Garden, really neat little song. Alice Cooper is on this. You kind of feel a little bit of Alice Cooper evil energy in it. Really nice sort of like kind of dense hard rocker that kind of just gets under your skin. Garden of Eden, Don't Damn Me, absolutely ridiculous just guitar playing by Slash. Bad Apples, which has this absolutely awesome Jimi Hendrix sort of crosstown traffic boom down bum bum bam beginning that is just goes into this super funky Axl performance and just great chorus. We get Dead Horse, starts off with some nice acoustic stuff before we go into this awesome little like hard rocker. And then we get the 10-minute Coma, just a mic drop of a song ender. About being in a coma, about just hating the world and not wanting to live. It's got this really dark, almost slightly proggy, like intense undertone to it. This really nice, dun-na-na, really nice riffs in it. But the last like minute and a half all builds up to like this epic Axl rant where he is just going on and on and on for like a minute and a half straight. And just the way it builds and the way everything up to that moment builds to that point. But it's just one of those song endings. And this will win me over to a song every time where he just starts in and then he's like, just keeps going off. Like at one point, it's like, you know, he's like, there were always ample warnings. So, I mean, he's just listing these things off and then it follows and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And it just never seems to end while the band is just jamming behind them. I think it's just an absolutely fantastic album. The reason it's three and not two, why it's the second, is that first side I think is just like all over the place and no consistency. I think Dust and Bones is just kind of buried. Right Next Door to Hell's just not a good opener. I don't understand that. If you had started off with Bad Obsession, track 7, and then maybe filter that first stuff throughout it, the sequencing could have made a better album. But actually, no, because the songs on Volume 2 are some of my favorite Guns N' Roses songs of all time. So, anyways, yeah. Number 3, Use Your Illusion 1. Number 2, Use Your Illusion 2, which came out on the same day as Use Your Illusion 1, September 1991. Apparently, it's their 4th studio album, even though they appeared on the same day. Yeah, this really is just like a couple bad choices as far as there's just a couple clunkers of songs. Maybe the sequencing's a little off, but just home run after home run after home run. They're all over the map. They're proggy, they're hard rock, they're giving Eminem inspiration for his entire career. But I think this is just a very ambitious band trying to do very ambitious things in a hard rock style. Opens up with Civil War, which I think was pretty decent sized hit or got played a lot. I love that song. I love the sort of acoustic. I love Slash. I think Slash's guitar playing is just like the melodies that he gets and the way he digs into songs and the way he always feels like you're like reaching this like sort of euphoric peak that he's gonna like bring you to before we go back into the song proper. I think Slash is just incomparable as a guitar player. Civil War is one of those where he just he's dropping those licks. 14 Years, a great Izzy song. Absolutely awesome, just awesome overall vibe. Yesterdays, a nice little almost like acoustic road song. Yesterday, like everybody's singing along and on the bus, driving down the road. Really good song. Then we get Knocking on Heaven's Door, the Dylan cover. I don't ever want to hear anybody do this. Don't like this. I will never enjoy this. Then we Get in the Ring, which is a pretty ridiculous song in which Axl attacks everybody who gave them a bad review and even names people by names. He gets a really good funny dig in at Gucciani Jr., Bob Gucciani's son. Kind of worth it. But he's a high profile enough person. I'm okay with that. But the song, essentially, I think Eminem must have heard this song at some point and was like, you know what? I got a lot of things to say too. I'm going to write 14 diss tracks and name names. But Slash, man, this melody he plays in the beginning, he returns to it at the end. It's almost like patriotic. You almost like want to salute. There's like everything he's doing in the background while Axl is just attacking people left and right. Like, don't even listen to Axl. Just pay attention to Slash and the rhythm section and the rest of the band, because musically, Get in the Ring is lights out. Shotgun Blues, really hardcore, sort of aggressive type, almost, not Motorhead-ish, but leaning more that direction. So Fine, a really nice Duff McKagan ballad. Nice, sweet little thing. Oh no, I'm skipping ahead. Shotgun Blues, then Breakdown, which is just acoustic and all these weird things in it. There's awesome jam in the middle, great lyrics, kind of a little proggy elements. Pretty Tied Up, Perils of Rock and Roll Decadence. Great, awesome little almost sitar sounding riff that comes in at one point. Really good energy. It's about the Sunset Strip and, being Guns N' Roses in the 80s. Locomotive, one of my all-time favorite tracks. This thing starts like a locomotive. The drums just come in. Then the band comes in. We get some bass lick. We get a great guitar riff. And we get like 7 minutes of just nothing but Axl lyrics. And Axl is just laying it all out there. It's about a love, a relationship gone wrong. Amazing lyrics, amazing guitar. Everything about this song just works. Then it goes into this really nice, almost like Santana influenced psych jam at the end that is just ridiculous. Then we get the Duff McKagan So Fine, which is a fantastic song. Then we get Estranged, which is another slower ballad. Definitely doesn't have quite the epic buildup as November Rain, but I think it has more interesting parts in it. And it's like islands of verses between like sort of streams of Slash guitar lines, and all of it just works. Like, I wish there was maybe more of a flow to it, but I can't complain about the song. We get You Could Be Mine, which was kind of a hit, which I think kind of works. We get Don't Cry, which I think is a better version than the One on One. And then we get the weirdest thing they've ever done, the Minute and a Half, My World, which is whatever. But yeah, it's just a fantastic, fantastic album. Just hard rock brilliance. They're doing some things, they're taking some chances, but it sounds like they're having fun. Slash is absolutely beautiful. And anytime Axl just gets a little too Axl-y, Slash is always there to save the day. Fantastic album. Use Your Illusion 2. And number one is, of course, Appetite for Destruction. This came out the summer before my junior year of high school, before my senior year of high school. So my senior year essentially became this album and Joshua Tree. I forgot about Joshua Tree. And the Grateful Dead's In the Dark. They were just everywhere, everywhere, every house party, every event, everything. You cannot escape this album. You cannot escape those other two. And I love this album. Best, I would argue, definitely one of the greatest hard rock albums ever made. Arguably the greatest hard rock album ever made. I mean, the greatest debut hard rock. I mean, hard rock, how you define that is, may include bands that I am not including. But, right, I would argue for that. If someone told me I had to defend this as the greatest hard rock album ever made, I would accept that job. But anyways, opens up with Welcome to the Jungle. Come on, Welcome to the Jungle, people. I mean, just absolute. In that video in which I talk about the first song you hear from a band, the Welcome to the Jungle is definitely on that list of debut songs from a band on their debut album. It's So Easy, which I'm pretty sure Axl then quotes also on Coma. He has a couple lines where he's like, "It's so easy." I think it's so easy. Yeah, I think he quotes that song, or is sort of a callback to this song. The absolutely awesome Night Train. Nighting on the Night Train. Just awesome. Mr. Brownstone, absolute classic. Maybe the best song on here. Paradise City, which is one of those songs. Like, it was so huge at one time, it was just like, oh, I'm sick of this song. And every time I listen to this album, it's the last song on side A. I'm just like, do I need to stick around for Paradise City? And then every single part of that, I'm like, you know what? This became so huge for a reason, because as soon as you get tired of one part, we're switching gears and we're going to another part, which makes you want to bang your head. Then we're going to another part, and there's so much going on, and it's so anthemic, and you really do just want to raise your fist. And I have to admit, the thought of seeing this live in like 2023, that might be a pretty cathartic moment. So yeah, looking forward to that. The awesome My Michelle, which I would say the Beatles have ruined Michelle as a song name you can use for a song. Guns N' Roses kind of save it. Absolutely awesome song. Great Think About You. And then the mic drop moment. I mean, come on. If you've been listening to this album, you got the Welcome to the Jungle and just the sleaze of that. You got Mr. Brownstone. Night Train just feels out of control and druggy. Paradise City, you know that's not a good thing in this paradise. It's not a Christian city. You know all these things. You get to Sweet Child of Mine, and it's just like, it's just perfect. I mean, that guitar melody, the lyrics, the vibe, still rocking hard and feeling like this, like driven, and like they don't soften their edges in order to make the song. Yeah, it's like the ballady, beautiful love song on the album, but it hits hard in so many ways. It's just fantastic. Then we get You're Crazy, Anything Goes, and the fantastic last track of the album, Rocket Queen. Absolute just stunner of a song. Closes out like almost in a complete different sort of vibe from Welcome to the Jungle, but the journey from Welcome to the Jungle all the way through those 12 songs, all the way to Rocket Queen at the end, is just hard rock at its best. Absolutely fantastic album. Yeah, everybody should love this album always. It is fantastic. Don't let the Guns N' Roses, like, cultural hysteria and everything they've done to offend people turn you off on this album. It is a great album. Maybe, possibly, arguably, hard rock at its best, people. Yeah, my number one, Appetite for Destruction. And that is my ranking of those 6 albums. Let me know your thoughts, how you would rank them, which ones, blah, blah, blah. You know how it works? Share your thoughts, especially if you're a Chinese democracy either person, if you have an opinion about Chinese democracy because you've listened to Chinese democracy, those are the opinions I'm most interested in. I'm not changing my opinion on anything else on this list. Chinese democracy, though, I might. I'm not. No, it's not better than Use Your Illusion 1, but man. It's so much better than it is any right to be. I'm interested in other people's thoughts on Chinese democracy. Not the concept globally, geopolitically, just the album. The album. But anyways, thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, do all that kinds of things. And if you don't know Guns N' Roses, and I know you do because that's why you're watching this video, but go back and listen to Appetite for Destruction and just remember what a ridiculously great album that is. Yeah. 1987 too, people. 1987. Yeah. Peace. Talk to you later.